So you're an international student, and you've got this huge dream of getting a fully funded master's or PhD abroad. Well, you're in the right place. We're going to skip all the generic advice you've heard a million times. Instead, this is your 4-year roadmap, a step-by-step plan that turns your unique background, where you're from, into your biggest strength. Let's get started.
Okay, this is probably the most important thing you're going to hear today. You have to get this into your head right now. If you try to compete head-to-head with a local student on their home turf, you're going to lose. It's just not a fair fight. So we're not going to play that game. We're going to play a totally different game, a much smarter one that's all about who you are and where you come from.
And here's our game plan. First, we're going to flip the script on how you see your geography. Then I'll walk you through the entire 4-year roadmap, phase by phase. We'll cover becoming a local hero, then building a global bridge, and finally launching what I call the funding siege. And at the end, you'll see just how different the strategic applicant looks from the unprepared one.
All right, let's really dig into this core idea. You need to understand that admissions committees, they're not just scanning for perfect GPAs. They're on a talent search for people who solve problems, people who bring a perspective they haven't seen before. And guess what? Your local community, your country, it's an absolute goldmine of unique problems just waiting to be explored.
We call this the full circle narrative. And trust me, it's a story that funding committees absolutely love. Here's how it works. You find a real, specific problem back home. Then you frame your entire graduate school application as a mission. You're not just going to study, you're going to get the exact skills you need to come back and fix that problem. Suddenly, you're not just another applicant, you're a future leader with a plan, and that's something they want to invest in.
So that sounds great, right? But how do you actually build a story like that? Well, it's not something you just dream up in your final year when you're panicking about applications. Now, you build it deliberately, piece by piece, over your entire time as an undergrad. This roadmap is your blueprint for doing just that.
And here it is, the whole strategy in one picture. Years 1 and 2 are all about building your local identity. In year 3, you start producing work that gets global attention. The summer before your final year, you knock out all the standardized tests. And then in year 4, you're not just applying, you're executing a strategic plan. Let's break down each part. Your first 2 years of university are where most students just drift along, but not you. This is your foundation. This is where you become the local hero, by connecting everything you do academically to the world right outside your door. Okay, let's look at the actual mission here. A great GPA, that's just the ticket to the game. It's non-negotiable. But here's your secret weapon, the problem bank. It's literally just a document where you start jotting down local challenges you see. Next, you get yourself into a professor's lab, even if you have to volunteer. Then, a quick fix. Change your LinkedIn from just student to something like aspiring environmental scientist researching water quality solutions. And most importantly, you start building real relationships with a few professors. Wondering how to build those relationships? It's not that complicated. You just walk into their office hours and you say this, word for word. Professor, I'm considering graduate school abroad, and I want to build a strong research foundation. What would you advise I focus on now? I'm telling you, that one question changes the entire dynamic. You're not just a face in a lecture hall anymore. You're a future colleague, and they'll start treating you like one. And look, this stuff really works. Take the story of Exuba, a first-year student in Nigeria. He sent one simple email asking if he could volunteer in a lab just to learn the basics. That one small action put him on a completely different path. It opened doors he didn't even know existed. Small steps early on lead to giant leaps later. All right, let me be really straight with you for a second. If you're hitting your 3rd year and you've never set foot in a lab or helped a professor with their work, it's not because you have bad luck. It's because you're unprepared. The clock is ticking, and the time to start building that research story is now, which, of course, brings us to the next phase. Okay, year 3. This is where we start connecting the dots. You've built this strong local foundation, and now it's time to build a bridge from your work at home to the global academic world. We're shifting from just having an interest to having actual, tangible evidence of your skills.
So your mission for this year is to create proof. You're aiming to get your name on a paper or present at a conference. You're applying for those big-name international internships. You're mastering a hard skill that people want. And, this is key, you start reaching out to professors abroad, not as a student begging for a spot, but as a junior researcher with something to offer.
And this is exactly how you write that email. You lead with your research. You talk about the work you've been doing on, say, supply chains in your city.
and you connect it directly to a paper they published. This is the data-first approach. You're showing them you're already in the game. You're bringing them a unique perspective. The point is, you offer value before you ask for anything.
But what if you don't have access to a fancy lab? Doesn't matter. Look at this example of Afi Koba in Ghana. He couldn't get into a lab, so what did he do? He got resourceful. He wrote and published a systematic review, which is something that just takes brain power and hard work, not expensive gear. That paper got him a fully funded master's in Canada. It's a perfect story because it shows grit, and committees love that.
And now we've made it to the final year. This isn't the time for a last-minute, chaotic frenzy of applications. No, this is a calm, focused, strategic siege. All the work you've done for the past 3 years is about to pay off right here.
The mantra here is apply smart, not wide. You have to know how the funding game is played in different countries because they're all different. For the US, you're targeting PhD programs that come with assistantships. For Canada, it's all about making contact with a supervisor first. In the UK, you're aiming for big scholarships like Chevening that care about your leadership potential. Know the rules of the game you're playing.
And here it is, the ultimate reward for all that effort you started way back in your first year. It's a recommendation letter. But it's not just any letter. It's one that says, I have personally supervised this student's research for the last 3 years. I mean, can you imagine the power of that sentence? That one line could be worth more than your entire GPA. It's the difference between rejection and a full scholarship.
Okay, let's wrap this up by putting it all side by side. I want you to see the huge difference between the typical random approach that most students take and the powerful, strategic one we've just laid out. This table basically sums up the entire system. You can see how each phase just logically flows into the next. You build your story, then you get global exposure. You standardize your profile, and you execute a flawless application. See? It's a deliberate process, not a desperate lottery ticket. Just look at the 2 columns here. It's night and day, right? The random applicant is just hoping their GPA is enough. They start thinking about this stuff way too late. They have no story. The strategic applicant, they've been building their narrative since day one. They use their local context as a superpower. They apply with surgical precision, and their recommendation letters are incredible. The question is, which one of these 2 people do you want to be?
And why does all this matter so much? Because of this number. A fully funded graduate degree, when you add up tuition, your living stipend, insurance, everything, can easily be worth over $200,000. This strategy isn't just about getting an education, it's about fundamentally changing your financial life.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. A single, well-crafted, strategic email, an email built on the foundation of your unique local knowledge, could literally be worth $200,000 in funding. And that brings us right back to the very first question, the one that starts this entire amazing journey. What local problem